All right, so I'm Tyler.
And I'm Katelyn.
I'm Fayuma.
And I'm Tanner. We're going to be taking a look at the learning organization K12 through the eyes of the authors of our books for this semester, Dr. Williams, Dr. Sahlberg, Dr. Berliner, and Dr. Glass.
So as Tanner mentioned, K12 is our learning organization that we're going to talk about extensively in the next few slides. But to begin, we're going to give you a little intro into what they are and how they got started. K12 is an online for-profit organization focused on bringing online education into the homes of students and their families. K12, as the name implies, is focused on kindergarten to 12th grade students. K12 markets itself as an alternative to brick-and-mortar traditional schools. K12 is basically set up like a charter school, so a state can either deny or accept their charter, and if the state accepts their proposal, then students in that state are able to go tuition-free. K12's main focus is to sum that up, they're not only an online school, but they offer different education services for schools, kind of like Pearson, and even provide curriculum and credit recovery programs. K12 strives to have a personalized setting for their students, and students really get to determine their day. For instance, if a student is feeling productive that day, they have the option of getting ahead in their work. If not, they have the option of finishing their work and continuing on a later date. This is something special to online schools, and it's something that really can't be done in traditional schools. So we kind of have a basis for who they are, but now let's talk about how they got started. K12 was founded by former banker Ronald J. Packard in 2000, and in 2007, K12, through their initial public offering, became a publicly traded company. This is kind of concerning and a conflict of interest if you think about it, because their main goal is to make profits and give it to their shareholders, which may come at the expense of students learning, for instance, if there's budget cuts of any kind. So K12's enrollment has increased 39% over the past year. Part of this is due to COVID because parents feel more comfortable switching to these already established online schools because they have the groundwork set up, compared to traditional schools who have been scrambling to put together their online curriculum. It's a valid point, but it's definitely something that we should look at. So our purpose is to determine if K12 is providing an environment that is conducive to learning and if their practices are backed up by leading specialists in the field. I'll be discussing our first theme, which talks about creating holistic students and creating meaningful curriculum. My theme is about standardized curriculum and incorporating the arts into the school's curriculum. Curriculum should include math, science, engineering, and technology, but it should also include arts, music, psychology, and other soft sciences. As Sahlberg mentioned, standardization in drill and kill and STEM does not utilize other intelligences such as creativity that the arts provide. So looking at the curriculum and lessons in K12, they have relatively engaging videos and are tailored to the age and skills of their students. These curricula are created by curriculum specialists who are generally former school teachers that have taught in brick and mortar schools before they taught in K12. They also have hired experts in the field. For instance, their history curriculum, they have hired a Smithsonian specialist that helps put together the lesson plans. So according to Sahlberg, Finland's curriculum is owned by Finns rather than rented from others, which is kind of the cornerstone of their education system. K12 is doing that since they have their own material and have created their own curriculum. So has creating their own curriculum helped these students? According to Roberts et al., this is not the case. They found that with no exception, students enrolled in K12 perform worse in math than their district and state counterparts. They found similar results when looking at English and language arts. So while their lessons may be engaging to students, they're not learning as much as their counterparts. Next, let's discuss the arts in K12. Williams discussed that the mind is intertwined with the heart, and we should be creating instances where students are able to think with their hearts. K12 has a major focus on STEM education. However, they have marketed as having real-world application and real-world thinking. I looked at one of their lesson plans for math, and it seemed to be fairly interactive. However, when you get to the actual homework, it's the same generic problems you would find anywhere else. This is backed up by Berliner and Glass, calling K12 the same drill and kill that is present in our schools. In K12, there's a lack of music, arts, and even physical education. Even looking at their website, they have highly publicized STEM clubs, but not so much in the arts. However, to give K12 the benefit of the doubt, they do have art clubs, quiz bowls, and even Lego clubs to try to engage students, but they aren't highly publicized. While they have these clubs, they still have not incorporated the arts into their curriculum.
My theme is about the competition aspect that students are faced with within the school system and the comparison between regular public schools and K12's learning environment. Learning experience in K12. K12 takes a personalized approach to learning as every student's experience is different and is developed around their age and skills. Unlike regular public schools, K12 tailors each student's curriculum to their individual needs and interests. K12 sends out regular surveys to students and parents as they're continuously trying to perfect and create a meaningful and engaging learning experience for their students. Dr. Williams wrote in Jewels for Schools, "I see success attributed to a very narrow band labeled winners. The rest whose gifts are immeasurable struggle to stay awake and in tune with their high school years. Their skills are not valued here." This may be true for regular public schools due to the one-size-fits-all curriculum. However, because K-12 takes a personalized approach to each student's individual curriculum and learning experience, students are more engaged with their material. Competition within schools. In regular public schools, students are constantly being publicly compared to their peers by teachers and administration, which is harmful for students who may fall behind other students in certain areas or need extra help. K-12 allows for students to learn in ways that work best for them at their own pace. K-12 allows for students to have more one-on-one time with teachers who understand their students' specific needs and what works best for them as individual students. The American public schools believe that students thrive off competition, which may be true for some. However, for most, it creates an unnecessary stress and possible embarrassment for those who may fall behind their peers. For example, when Dr. Williams walked into that classroom and saw learning achievement marks publicly displayed among the classroom, because K-12 gives each student an individualized curriculum and material that is based around their own interests at a pace that works best for them, this competition, or you could say comparison aspect, is not prevalent.
On to theme number 3, which will be discussing the learning environment that a teacher and a student create. Education is centered around the learning environment that a student is exposed to. If done right, a teacher could change the view, open a whole new window of options for a student to understand. It's very personalized. In our reading of Jewels on Schools, the first topic we were introduced to is the singularity, which is a topic, brief definition, is when a teacher and a learner have this understanding brought upon, very personalized understanding brought upon by an action that the teacher did, or perhaps a situation or a lesson that like really caught the student's attention and really taught them a lesson. In the pandemic times that we have now, education has been challenged in that way because there's not as many chances for an interaction, a face-to-face interaction with the teacher. There's not as much engagement because of the screen in between. There still is, but not as like powerful, as effective. And the disarray that has left many individuals has kind of caused some to suffer in a way, but substantially it's been fine for the most part. Now, looking at the normal classroom versus the K-12 classrooms, or the classroom, it's very substantially different, because in a normal traditional school, in most of our understanding, it's more in person, it's in depth. But the way the K-12 works, their program, it's an online learning system where it's more personalized. As many people have said, like alumni and others have said, it's more personalized. You can go through advanced learning easier. You can do more personalized schedules. Like you can have online assignments in the morning, and then you have a couple like hours that you meet with the teacher in the afternoon. And then you have freedom for whatever you need to do, whether it's more academic stuff you have to do, or it's just free time or time to do homework or chill. It's very versatile in that way. There's no strict schedule, and you can custom any learning that you want. But the only other downside is that there's no in-person teacher. There's no teacher you can always come to whenever you're in there. In the classroom, you're forced to be in a room with your instructor. You're in the same room, so it's easier to just go from your desk or wherever you're sitting to the teacher to discuss something, versus the other way around, where you're on a screen. You have to go plan something or interact with them in a time that works to some degree. Sometimes it works out, sometimes, yeah. In the end, K-12 was way more prepared for the pandemic because they were online. Most other schools weren't. And I reference most of the information I've gotten from their websites, as well as other like interviews and such, as well as some articles.
last theme that I'll be talking about today is pedagogy and teacher qualification. Looking back over the entire semester, one of the things that all three of the authors talk about and agree that is important is pedagogy. We just heard Fayuma talk about singularities. Something I thought was interesting about what Jules said about singularities is that she said that they were rarely about the subject taught or the sport coached, alluding to the fact that the best teachers and the most effective teachers have something a little bit more than just subject knowledge. Berliner and Glass reinforced that idea in their 14th myth, where they say that subject matter knowledge is the most important asset that a teacher can possess. They go on to debunk that and say that it's more important that a teacher can teach effectively than be an expert in their field. Solberg also agrees. He points out that in the Finnish education system, teachers are actually required to have a master's degree in pedagogy, and in their secondary education, their main focus is education. In order to apply these fundamentals to the learning institution K12, we first need to know that all of their teachers are state certified. Since K12 is a nationwide organization and certification processes vary from state to state, these teachers are going to have all different kinds of qualifications with all different kinds of certification processes being completed. Here in Minnesota, we have a tiered certification process where the very base tier requires that you have at least a bachelor's degree and have completed a state-approved teacher education program that focuses on pedagogy. Now, since K12 is completely online, obviously their learning environment is going to be a little bit different. So K12 makes sure that all their teachers go through special training that includes teaching technology, how to use technology effectively while you're teaching, and just how to be able to interact with students effectively when you're not face-to-face. So all in all, while I think this special training is a good thing for the pedagogy of the teachers involved with K12, I think overall as a country, the state-to-state certifications usually ignore pedagogy and put more of a requirement on subject knowledge, which like we discussed before, isn't always the most effective.